Okay, now we're live on YouTube. All right, welcome everybody to Network for Law Students and Lawyers. Today I am so excited because we have a panel discussion on the law school experience, and we have people from the day division program, the evening division program, and from the 2-year accelerated program. So I'm so excited today. There we go. Okay, guys, so I just wanted everybody to unmute yourselves, and we're going to go and introduce everybody. So I guess Brittany first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Anderson. I actually attended WMU Cooley, and I went to the evening part-time program, and now I'm a licensed attorney, and I practice technology law, but I will be opening my firm soon, and I will practice business and some other parts of civil.
Awesome. William, could you unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is William Gosling. I am a graduate from New York Law School's 2-year accelerated honor. Thank you, Randy, for organizing. And I'm currently primarily in federal court defending the city of New York and the city agencies in Section 1983 causes of action, so civil rights cases.
Very cool. Tisha?
Hi, my name is Tisha Johnson. I am currently a 4LE, so I'm an evening student at North Carolina Central University, and I work full-time.
Sydney?
Hi, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I graduated from Harvard Law School in 2018, and I clerked for a judge on a family rotation after I graduated, and I was a family law private litigator for a little bit, but I'm actually now a full-time admissions consultant, so I work with 9th through 12th grade students, and then, of course, I work with law school students on the law school admissions process.
Awesome. Vivian?
Hi, my name is Vivian Williams. I graduated from Florida Coastal School of Law about 4.5 years ago, I think now. And I've been practicing with the Public Defender's Office for a bit, and I did the daytime program for 3 years.
Awesome. So as you can see, we have people from different aspects of the law school experience. So what made you go into the respective program that you chose? So let's start with Sydney.
Sure. I actually only considered full-time day programs. I went straight through from undergrad, which only about 20%, I would say, of law school students are straight through. It used to be a lot higher. But coming from undergrad, I was looking for, that full school experience, the social experience, the, living fully immersed kind of life. And I did work while I was there part-time, but school was my main focus.
Awesome. Brittany?
I would say I actually needed to take an evening program. I worked full-time, and I'm probably like most people who want to attend law school now. They are very untraditional or non-traditional. I went to undergrad, and then I got my master's. By that time, I'd already had a full-time job, and I couldn't afford to go to school full-time because I also had a little girl that I had to take care of. So I was on the hunt for anything that, or any school that could help accommodate that sort of family life situation that I had. And Cooley just happened to be one of those programs where I could go in the evening and or on the weekends. So I could, stay home during the week, or I could try and figure out how I could fit my school schedule into my work schedule without being away from my daughter so much.
Awesome. Let's go to Vivian.
I'm much like Sydney. I only went for the day program. I was coming straight, or actually about a year out of undergrad, and money was a big reason why I ended up choosing what I chose. It was cheaper. And so I ended up just going to Coastal in their 3-year daytime program.
Okay, Tisha, and then Will.
Similar to Brittany, I was also working full time. So I got my undergrad, I went back for my master's and have been working. I work in human resources. So I have been working in human resources. Also have a family, so could not quite give up the salary to maintain everyone. So North Carolina Central was the local university that provided the evening program as an option for me.
Very cool. Okay, Will, why did you choose the 2-year program?
So I would say that the 2-year program kind of chose me, but I was looking for full-time day programs. Once I graduated from undergrad, I spent a little bit of time working as a paralegal to see if I wanted to actually become a lawyer. And then I was like, yeah, this is for me. So I want to get this done as quick as possible. So although the 2-year program looked challenging because of the many credits that you were taking and the not so much breaks, because we went to school in the summer, spring, winter, fall, basically every day for 2 years. It was a rewarding experience, and also the money, I second that because we got a generous scholarship from being in the program, so that's why I took the accelerated road.
Yeah, so I actually also did the 2-year program. I did it with William. William was actually in my study group, so it's funny to have him here now. But I chose for the same reason, the hefty scholarship that they gave us, and I wanted to get out in the workforce sooner. So that's why I chose it. And actually, I chose it, well, like when he says that it chose him, it chose me too, because I actually applied to the evening division program originally, but because it was free to apply to the 2-year program, I was like, all right, let me just apply, and they could say no. And then so I was shocked when I got in. So moving on from that, just a follow up, what generally do you think is better about your program than the other 2 programs? Or if you don't want to answer it that way, positives and negatives about your program. So let's actually start with Will.
Okay, so I would say that a positive for the program was being able to get the program done in 2 years, being able to graduate early, sit for the bar exam early. I would say that a negative aspect of the program was probably when we started, because we started in the winter term. Things kind of were off track when it came as far as like getting internships and being we were on a different track than everyone else. So it made it a little bit more challenging to adapt. And also I would say because the 2-year program at my school didn't have as many people in it, the programs that were at the school as far as like extracurricular programs, while they did their best to involve the 2-year program, many of us felt as if like the 2-year program kind of got the short end of the stick when it came to extracurricular activities and involvement. So I would say that was probably a downside of the 2-year program. But we did graduate early, so that was nice.
Okay, next up, Sydney.
Sure. So it's hard. So I've been consulting since 2012, so I help students wrestle with these choices of where to go. I think unfortunately, in terms of rankings, there aren't a lot of T14 programs that have a lot of options in terms of how you go to school. Most of them are full-time day programs. I would say one of the things that drew me to Harvard as opposed to some other similarly situated schools would be the size. I know that there's a lot of consideration about whether you want a big school or a small school. And I actually really loved going to a big school. Harvard's the 2nd largest school. I think Georgetown is the largest. And so it's about 580 students per class, somewhere around there. It just allowed me to meet new people. I got to know my section mates really well, but every year I got to meet new people. There were no shortage of activities and clubs and clinics and journals and things to kind of dip my toes in. And I think it allowed for a greater range of course possibilities, like fashion law and like other kind of really niche things. So yeah, that's why I kind of liked the bigger school feel.
Gotcha. So Brittany, why did you choose the evening? Well, what do you think is the positive and negatives about the evening division program?
I think the flexibility, especially if you are a working parent or if you just don't want to have that traditional law firm experience, being in the evening program kind of helps with that. The coursework is still the same, it's still as rigorous, but you have the flexibility to take your classes in the evening, and after your, I guess your, I was muted there. After you get done with your regular life, you have your law school courses, and then like you don't have to really worry about trying to fit them in during the day, because I know that's what I did before. Well, how can I go during the day part-time? That just wasn't feasible for me at all. So having the flexibility to do it in the evenings or on the weekends it was amazing to me.
Great. Vivian, why did you choose your positive and negatives about your program?
I think I have to piggyback off of what Will said about a positive. It did allow for me to be a part of some of the internships and programs. While I was there, I got a chance to substitute some of my classes because court was happening as a judicial clerk for Judge Ruth. So that kind of helped. And I don't think I'd have probably gotten that opportunity otherwise. I would say that the con for me was that even though I prefer the smaller school, I would say my cons mostly the private school kind of thought that I went through, because I went to a private school in an effort to try to lower other costs, but it still ended up having a bit of a hit in cost because of the fact that it's a private school and they charge more for mundane things. So that would be my negative, is even though when, as Sydney mentioned, choosing class size, maybe think about private versus the public sector.
Very good point. Tisha, positives and negatives?
The positive for me was definitely being able to still work, right? And there are actually people even in my evening program who do not work during the day, right? And so it just gives them a little bit more time to kind of digest. But for me, that was really essential. I was able to continue earning income while doing law school. And so that's the positive. I would say the negative is kind of similar to what some of the other panelists have listed as their positive, which is you don't get the experience of internships or even a lot of clinics or a lot of those options. So if you are looking for the evening program and you're not currently working, or you're not looking to go into the field where you have experience, it could be a downside because you may not really have opportunities for outside exposures.
Right. So Sydney, what made you want to be an attorney?
I love this question so much. So I was one of those kids who wanted to be an attorney since she was 8. They used to have these commercials, not commercials, the programming, Wednesday's Child. They don't run them anymore, but it used to showcase children who were cleared for adoption in the foster care system. And I was an only child at the time. I have a younger sister now, but I really wanted an older sibling. And so I brought this to my parents. I was like, great, I have a solution. These children need a home. We have a home. Win, win, win. And they said no. And I actually just started getting really interested in the foster care system and realized at that time that, if only a quarter of the households in America took one child, we wouldn't have any children in the system at all. But then started being really interested. So I'm from Montgomery County, Maryland, which is right outside of DC, I'm public schooled. And just noticing that, even my classmates who had similar high quality education, because we were in a great school system, had like different outcomes. And so we talk a lot in this country about the education gap, but we don't talk about the family gap or the resource gap or the information gap. And so I started becoming really passionate about helping people on their path. And advocating for children or working with children in some capacity to like push them further on their path. And so I decided, I'm gonna go into child advocacy, and I held that thought all the way through. Even though I was an English major at Princeton, I did a lot of research on young adult literature and children's literature, and just always trying to figure out like how children think, and then also just like how those opportunities present themselves.
Awesome, very awesome. So I'm gonna go to Vivian and then to Brittany. What were some major differences between your undergrad experience and your first year of law school?
You want to go first?
I would probably say everything. Only because I actually got my master's in between. So I wasn't one of the younger law school students, and in undergrad, you can cram the night before or the morning of your exam. And with law school, you can't do that at all. Yeah, you like don't even show up for the exam. They teach you a different way to think. You have to learn how to IRAC. You have to learn how to think critically, analytically, apply your facts to your rules. And that was something that was completely different from undergrad and the way they taught you and the way that you actually consumed information. So just that learning curve was very, very different.
I completely agree with what Brittany said. I found myself kind of breezing-ish through undergrad. And then I got in a room full of similar like-minded people in law school and was like, oh, okay. So that was one of my big differences. But I also liked the, weird method that a lot of people hate, the Socratic method of cold calling. I love it. And I didn't have that in undergrad. It reminds me of my theater experience from high school. So for me, it was a good thing, while other people, it prompted me to want to do better because I knew that you could pick on me and I wanted to be prepared. So that was my biggest difference, and that's what I love the most between the two.
Right. Well, girl, you're on your own for the Socratic method, but because I hated it. So I'm gonna go to Tisha now. Since there was just one final exam, how did you assess your progress throughout the semester?
Practice. When they say practice makes perfect, that is so true in law school. So resources, I use Quimby a lot. They have multiple choice. Our school actually has a library of resources that has tons of study guides, practice, multiple questions, essay questions. If you can get your professor to give you some practice multis or practice essay exam questions from old exams, sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes your classmates or previous classmates, older classmates might have some other practice, just practice. You have to, this was probably the most scariest part for me of law school, because it's like, how do you know if you're on track? And the only way you can really gauge whether or not you're on track is practice. So pull out those multis. Hopefully you can get them from somebody, either your professor or another student. But if not, there are tons of resources out there. Just pull them out, start practicing, because you'll see as you start answering those questions whether you're on track and which areas you need to improve. So
awesome. So what makes the first year so hard? I'm gonna go with Vivian on that one.
Piggybacking sort of from my previous answer, it was because I came in with the same mindset that I could slack off, and I couldn't. And so when I had to kind of retrain myself how to study, how to, get myself into the proper way of how to do it. And I had to realize that just because you got the suggestion doesn't mean that the suggestion worked for you. I spent my first year trying to do study methods or systems that were recommended by a lot of the professors, while great, just didn't work for me. And I was trying to force myself to do it because in my mind, this is what lawyers do, or this is what people who are in law school did, because that's what I was being referred to. So I had to kind of get out of that mindset and put myself into the perspective of what is working for you, what is not working for you. Do those things, and throw away all of the others. And that, I think, is what made it so difficult. But once I got out of that and kind of moved myself into the finding my kind of niche of how to make it work, then it became a little easier to do.
Right. So what was your most significant challenge in law school? I'm gonna go to Sydney, Brittany, and then Will.
Yeah, so my senior year of college, actually, I had an injury, a dance injury that was pretty difficult to diagnose. And when I started my 1L year, I was actually in so much pain that I really couldn't walk without pain. And so I ended up, I actually have an autoimmune disease, but I didn't know it then. And I didn't know it the entire 3 years that I was at Harvard. And so I spent a lot of time in Ubers. I think I gave Uber all of my money, going to different doctors, different chiropractors, because it became more than just the injury. It became this debilitating fatigue, and trying to, thank God for like student financial services. I'm going to give a shout out. I know every school is different, but my medical expenses were such that I couldn't handle it on the budget, and I just went to student financial services and I was like, what can we do? And they actually had a fund, I didn't know that, where they could reimburse medical expenses above the budget in a grant. And so ask not, receive not, because that wasn't publicized at all, but that helped me through. But just, everyone else was just focused on studying and school. And there's a huge social life too. I was social chair for the Black Law Students Association, so I'm also trying to go to all these parties. But I, had this kind of hidden life of, 4 or 5 different doctor's appointments every week, and PT exercises and painkillers, and trying to manage my health. That people, I just felt like, I didn't really have an avenue to share that. And also, it's like, okay, they just get to focus on school, and it's not fair that I also have to do these things. It ended up making me stronger, but I would say balancing that was pretty hard my 3 years.
Cool. Brittany?
I would say probably, even though I had the flexibility of going to school in the evening, just balancing work, home, and school, that was a bit of a struggle. My daughter was 5 at the time, so they're still at that age where they need you, and you have to tuck them in, you have to make the dinner. So coming home from work at 4:30, 5 o'clock, trying to hurry up, scramble, make dinner for my daughter, make sure I get the sitter together, and then rushing out the door. It's like, I kind of felt guilty sometimes, I'm a terrible mom. I've never seen my kid, but, I try to make sure I'm rushing out of class to go tuck her in if she's still awake. And then, on those days where I don't have class, I put her in the bed and I'm, studying at 10 or 11 until 1, 2 in the morning. So just trying to balance that internal struggle of feeling like a terrible person or a terrible mom, and the stress of work, the stress of life, the stress of parenting, just all of that together was just really rough. So it took a while, but I had to find that balance.
Right. So Will, your most significant challenge in law school?
Thank you, Randy. So my most significant challenge in law school was, I would have to say, going into law school, my first semester, unfortunately, my brother tragically passed away, as Randy knows. And he was a victim of gun violence and ultimately lost his life because of it. And it was really hard to balance, especially being in a 2-year program, taking 17 credits, going to school constantly, and having to deal with the emotional grieving and loss of my younger brother. So, how I dealt with it was being able to rely on family and friends and excellent classmates who were there to help me along the way, especially when I would need to step out of a class because, the issue of guns was something that in your first year of law school, it's kind of like there's no escape. You're forced to take, as part of the curriculum, many different classes being criminal law. And so the mens rea aspect, or even gun violence, guns and torts, and all of that would have an emotional effect on me as well. Doing the readings, sometimes I would read cases that would be very close to home, and it would really, make me upset. So balancing out my mental health as well as trying to be able to think critically about issues and figure out how can I answer this if this is an exam question, when this is a situation that is so close to home and I'm still grieving from this, how to best work on that. Because if your mental health isn't there, you're really not going to be successful in law school. If you can't help yourself and you can't get the strength to help yourself, you're not going to be able to really advance, when you're trying to learn the curriculum. But I was able to, like I said, rely on my classmates who, if I step out, would take notes for me, and I would get the notes for them when I had a moment to myself. Rely on my classmates when I was having a bad day and just needed someone to talk to. They were always there. And, practice, lots of practice with gun questions, practice with, reading it and changing my outlook on it, to not think of it so negatively, but to be more understanding and to work harder at it. And then I also went to many different doctor's appointments while I was in law school. I had a therapist. I saw a therapist weekly, which really helped me. And then also the school, New York Law School, provided me with great resources of people that I could speak to at the school whenever I was having a difficult day or a difficult time. So I would say that all of that.
Yeah. Were you involved in any law student organizations? I'm gonna go to Vivian and then Brittany.
I was in the Black Law Students, and I was in the Caribbean Law Students. I am not Caribbean, but a friend of mine was, and she invited me to one of the events, and they were just so kind of outgoing that I ended up joining them as well. But I really enjoyed my time. It was a great space for, people, getting to know people, getting to have kind of that balance, learning. And also it was a great place to get internships and learn, because, other people knew people, or they knew about the things that you didn't know. And because you were involved in the group, you got a chance to see or hear about those. That's actually how I learned about the clerkship. So doing things like that was great for me, largely because I was slightly under involved in undergrad. So I wanted to do something different. And so I decided to become a part of the organizations while I was there.
Cool. Brittany?
I think being in the evening program, it was a little bit harder to participate in a lot of the activities, but I was able to be a member of BALSA, and I was also a governor for the Florida Bar Young Lawyers Division, the Law Student Division. And I thought that was probably one of the most memorable times that I've had in law school, and it provided me with so much just education and so many resources to just introduce me to the Florida Bar, as well as other attorneys around the state of Florida and outside of the state of Florida. We got a chance to go to conferences, meet attorneys, and just being a governor, I guess the weight that carries was pretty heavy. And I actually loved it. Got to put on several different events through the Florida Bar, and just engage with a lot of the students, a lot of the local judges, and just your entire school administration. I thought it was really, really great.
Very cool. Actually, William, can you speak to moot court? What is moot court?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I was a member of moot court. I was actually on the executive board, where I was in charge of it was the Firstell competition, which is the competition that members that join the team have to participate in. It's only within New York Law School. But moot court is a chance to argue for appellate advocacy. So what you do is you get a brief, you get the trial court's decision, you get the appellate court's decision, and now you're about to make oral arguments before the Supreme Court. And most of the time what the trial court says and the appeals court says differ. So now you're trying to argue one way or another. And it really sharpened my writing skills, because I did a lot of brief writing. You have to write a lot of briefs, depending on whichever, if you're the appellate or the appellee. And then once you submit the briefs, then you also then to prepare for oral arguments, which is 15 minutes of oral arguments. You learn about the formal, procedures, like when you begin an argument, may it please the court, the things how to really make an oral argument great, get better with public speaking, to get better at issue spotting. Because really 15 minutes, although it seems like a lot of time, when you're dealing with complex issues and you're trying to change the law on certain issues, 15 minutes is very quick. And when you go to these competitions, so we competed nationally, And, I had the privilege of competing at American University in DC and also Cardozo Law School in Manhattan. So when you get a chance to go to these competitions and you are giving your oral arguments, they ask you questions. So you'll have a panel of judges, there'll be 3 to 5 judges, and they kind of just go on the fly with just asking you a question. You could be in mid-thought, mid-sentence, and all of a sudden you get, well, Mr. Gosling, what do you think about how this will change our court president? And you have to be able to adapt very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it really sharpened my writing skills, my oral advocacy skills, and really ultimately, now I'm finding out, has made me a better attorney.
Right. So Vivian, what are some misconceptions about law school? She's on.
Randy, I think you're muted.
So Tisha, what was surprising about law school, and what was your experience right before law school, and did you go straight to law school from undergrad?
So, no, I didn't go straight to law school from undergrad. I worked full-time, actually graduated high school in 2000, and so I didn't start law school till 2017. So quite a bit of time later before I decided that this was a path that I wanted to take. But in terms of what was most surprising, honestly, how much we teach ourselves in law school. Like in undergrad and even in grad school, I mean, there's lecture and, there's outlines that the professor is giving and they're really guiding you along the way. But in law school, so much of this is on your own. Professors often talk in abstract ideas and concepts. And so you're then taking that and making it something meaningful so that you can then be able to explain and articulate, an argument. And I just didn't realize, I'm like, we pay all this money to then go home and teach ourselves. So that was really, really surprising for me.
Very true. So Vivian, what are some misconceptions about law school?
One misconception I think is that it's stuffy. That was one of the things that I heard the most. When I first told my family and friends, they was like, oh, so that means you're gonna have to stop doing this. You're gonna have to wear this. You're gonna have to throw this away. You're not gonna be able to do this anymore. And so I felt very restricted when I first started. And I think a lot of people think that that's how it's supposed to be, very stuffy and kind of, rigorous and but in my time there, I learned that law is so vast. It covers such a large platform. You only think about lawyer because it's television, or you only think about, the lawyer that runs the corporate buildings, but there are lawyers in every aspect of people's lives, from social injustice to advocacy for homes, for food, for water. You can literally do anything with a law degree. And I didn't know or understand that when I first started. And I think that is most people's misconception is I must go be a bar attorney and sit and practice and, have the rigorous life of corporate law. And that's not it. That's a big myth. You can be yourself. You can bring your experiences to the game, and you can do anything that you want to do in it.
Right. Very true. So I'm going to go to Sydney on this one. Is it possible to date while in law school?
I have many thoughts on this. The answer is first, yes, absolutely. So first, I have many section mates who are now married to each other, which is great to see, especially in the day programs. You spend an absurd amount of time with your section. And of course, within BALSA, we had a pretty large Black Law Students Association. I'm not going to lie to you, when I was 21 and making these decisions, I was like, well, there's only 5 Black guys at that school. So there's, but there is definitely some inner BALSA dating. People date at the business school or other graduate schools. I actually, I met my boyfriend at Harvard We've been together for a few years now. He was getting his post-bac at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. He's actually now getting his PhD at Princeton in molecular biology. I'm allergic to science, so that is as much as I can say about that. But I actually was really struggling with not having as much of a faith community as I wanted. So at Princeton, we had Hallelujah Church, which was a Black Methodist and Baptist mix, and like a lot of other Ivy Leagues do have like Black Church at Yale is a thing. Like there's a lot of good Black church resources. And at Harvard, it's like I had entered this place where like there was just like very little faith on a campus-wide scale. And it's the first time that I had entered a space where I felt like even the Black people were not as religious. And so I was trying to figure that out and grapple with that. In a lot of ways, law school is a lot wider than undergrad. Even, you know, between the institutions, I felt my Blackness more at Harvard than I did at Princeton. And so when I was trying to find my people and find my community, and for me, looking for a man of faith, I was like just really struggling. And so I joined we had a Black Graduate Ministries, which is like the organization in which I met him, and we actually didn't even date, like we were just friends. We didn't start dating until after I left law school, but I really, like, my first year I was like, there's no Black church, this is a problem. My second year I was like, can I fix this? And people were like, no, we're too busy. And I was like, okay, you're right, I don't. And my third year I was like, no, we need a church. So I was like, who's gonna help me? And I remember I put up flyers. I had one Black chaplain who helped me, Jonathan Fields. He was great. And we were like, okay, we're going to buy Popeyes. We found like the one Popeyes in like Boston, like the one. And like, we were like, okay, we're going to get all this Popeyes. We like rented space at the Memorial Church. And we were like, we're just going to pray that people come and maybe want to help us. And we did. We got people from a variety of different schools, from the divinity school, from the business school, from the law school even. We started having worship services every other Sunday. It was small, but it was a good community. And it grew to being like an actual organization at Harvard, which was amazing. And, from that friendship, my boyfriend and I started dating, ironically, after I left. But we've been together for a few years, and he's amazing. And so I definitely tell people it is definitely possible to date while in law school. I think that you have to know what you want, because sometimes people's ambitions are more important than their relationships with people, is what I've found, at least at Harvard. And so, some unsuccessful attempts my first couple of years, because they saw their life in one direction, and it was like, okay, like if you're gonna date me, you need to be on this direction with me. But like sometimes your ambitions are in a different direction, and when people get to that level, they're like not really willing sometimes to compromise. I mean, not saying that you should, but that can cause a friction for sure. But it can be a great support to have a partner.
Very true. So Vivian, did you do anything the summer before law school to prepare for law school?
I did. I didn't get in on my first round of law school applications, so I had to sit out a year. And I decided to take that time to reflect and see if I even wanted to be a law student or in law school. So I literally opened the phone book. I tell this story often. I literally opened the phone book and I started scanning attorneys and was like, hey, do you want some help? I'm willing to be like free up for a bit. And I ended up finding Rhonda Peoples Waters here in Jacksonville, who, just became the first elected Black female judge. And very excited about that. And she allowed me to work with her for the year that I was out. So I had some like actual experience of seeing how different law school really was from the actual practice of law. And I think that helped me greatly, because I often say that law school and the practice are not the same. They are completely different things. And having had that experience of an actual law experience, and she did mostly criminal law when I was there, and had a very amazing case that I had a chance to be a part of the woman who kind of shot into the air trying to get away from her abusive husband. She got her, eventually, I wasn't there when she was released, but I was very happy to have been a part of that case in the beginning. But I think that was a great thing that helped me prepare to push myself farther through law school, because now I knew what the other side looked like.
Right. So William, what about the law school curve? Is it as stiff as it sounds? Can you hear me?
On the program that you're in. So as Randy will remember, it really depends on the amount of people that are in the program. And, there's different, I would say there's no guidance as to how the curve is until you get the grades and get the results, because, in the beginning, they try to sit down and tell you, we want everyone to succeed or whatever, but they don't tell you there's only so many A's, so many B's, so many C's until, the semester ended, and now you're getting those ABCs on your transcript. So I would say that the 2-year program had a very competitive curve, unfortunately. That was kind of one of the negatives of the program, because I feel like because there were only 16 of us. I'm not sure, but I think because there were 16 of us, it brought out a competitive side and a competitive nature in people that it should never have been brought out. But I would also say that once, in the 2-year program, once you finish the first year, you kind of then realm into other classes where you're in bigger classes, and then you're like, wow, now I totally understand, that the curve actually isn't that bad. But when you were in the 2-year program, it was hard, because also everyone in the 2-year program was really, really smart. So not to say that everyone's not smart. Obviously, everyone who gets into law school, everyone has the ability to do well. But, the 2-year program particularly, these were candidates who were very great test takers and just really competitive and smart, educated people with all different backgrounds. So having 16 students in the class made the curve a lot harder versus when I was in a class of constitutional law with 100 people. Then it was a lot easier. But and I would also say that although there is a curve and there is a competitive nature, I would say that to your surprise and to my surprise, you actually become really good friends with people who are willing to help you and willing to, see you do well. It's not all like, you hear horror stories about law school about like people destroying books so that you can't read it, and people doing this, and, it's checking out books so you can't see the books. And, I kind of had an opposite experience. I had, really good friends, really good study group, as Randy knows, and Randy, my other friend, Jeannie. And, if I didn't understand something, they would be the first people that I would go to and say, can you help me understand this case? Or can you help me understand this doctrine of law? And that was really beneficial. But I just want to also let everyone know that unfortunately I have to go. But I want to provide you all with my email address. If anyone has any questions, feel free to send me an email. So I'm going to say the quick version. If for the spelling, you can contact Randy. Randy will get it to you. But it's wgosling108@gmail.com. And thank you so much, Randy, for having me on this panel. Thank you all to the fellow panelists. And I hope you all have a great day. And if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
So speaking of competition, what was the academic experience at your perspective law schools? Was it competitive, like Will mentioned, tearing out pages from books in the library? Or was it laid back? Were they stealing documents from the group, the library printer? Were there any cheating rumors in your law school? Or were they supportive of section, people in your section were supportive of one another? Were there any petty rivalries? So I'm gonna go to Vivian and then Sydney.
Ooh, I had a mix of both. I had a really good group that I found myself, I hate to say it like this, guys, but I went to mostly PWIs. So this was my first group of actually like Black friends. And that was a unique experience for me. And so that part was good. And that was kind of my circle that was behind me and had my back. But unfortunately, we also had to deal with a little bit of racism while we were in our school. And we had a group that just did not care for the Black students being at, higher levels at that time. And it was rumored that there was a plan to give us a fake test during one of our exams to kind of thwart the standing of a lot of the Black students, because we were very few in number in my section. That was unfortunate. I'm glad we caught it early, or that it didn't happen, or that it was just a rumor, whatever ended up going down with it. But it was competitive in that perspective, because people wanted to be at the top of the class. People wanted to be, the number one, and that just unfortunately didn't happen. And I'm glad I got through it, but it was definitely with the help of my smaller crew that was, like Will said, behind me, that I could call in the middle of the night and crying, like, what's happening or whatever it is that's going on. And we kind of banded together and made it through.
Right.
Yeah, so I also had a small group from my section. I mean, I love all my section mates, but in terms of I didn't really do group studying before law school. I didn't do a ton of it in law school, but similarly, the Black people in my section did band together. We found the one like soul food restaurant, and then we found the one Caribbean restaurant. Boston is really it's a struggle sometimes. But so we bonded over those foods. I would say that I don't have any lawyers in my family. I don't come from money, and so I didn't really know what to expect going to law school. It really wasn't competitive. I think probably a factor of, like, Harvard doesn't have grades. Actually, there's a few schools in the T10 that don't have grades. I don't know. We have like pass, high pass, low pass, dean's list. I don't know. No one really gets a low pass, and only like maybe the top 2 people get dean's list. And I've heard some professors just kind of randomly giving out H's and P's. The truth of the matter is, like, everyone's going to get a job. So there are some people who I think were competitive with themselves, especially, I'd say, like, surprisingly, there's not a lot of people who come from Ivy League undergrads that go to Harvard Law. You would think that would be the case, but it really isn't. They do take from a wide range of schools, which is fantastic. But I think it's a lot of students who are used to getting like 4.0 in college. Like, they've been A's this whole time. I think when you get to be like 24, 25 and you've never gotten a B, like, it does something, I think, to your like sense of academics. And I will tell you that Princeton taught me how to fail real early, and a lot. And so I was real comfortable not getting A's by the time I got to Harvard. And so I was like, oh, there's no grades. HP, this is great. And some people did not have that mindset. They were like, well, no, I must get all H's. And that's like almost impossible, because some professors, I swear, like, they've basically said it's a little random. I think the top 35% sort of get an H, and then like your first year, and then maybe the top 30% your second and third years. But some seminars give all H's and some seminars don't give any. And I found the classes that I understood the least sometimes are the ones I did the best in. So once I decided that it was basically random, I took a lot of pressure off myself. Could I have worked a little harder? Like, did I get enough H's to click for the Supreme Court? No. Do I want to click for the Supreme Court? No. I think it's all a matter of like what your particular goals are. And for the most part, like most normal goals, there was no need to be competitive. So people were really helpful with outlines and notes, and studying. I think it was just people's competitiveness within themselves that I saw as being really unhealthy, especially that first year. And so I always try to tell people, like, do not stress just because everyone else is stressing. Because usually when you look at the third years, they're just so happy and so chill. And you realize that it's not, it's not worth it, I think. And I'll say one more thing about grades. I always tell people, if you're competing against another Harvard person, then yeah, your grades sort of matter. But if you're competing against a non-Harvard person, like I moved back home to Maryland, and I remember my very first judge interview, he was like, what is an H? What does that mean? And I love the judge who I clicked with, but she said she almost didn't hire me because she couldn't figure out what the grades meant. And so she wasn't sure if I did well or not. But like I say all that to say that, it wouldn't have been worth it for me to be like for other people even to be so competitive and stressed about that, because for most people, you're just going to have to explain it to them anyways.
Right, right. I'll speak a little bit to this. There was a cheating rumor in our school. The lesson for this is avoid the appearance of impropriety. So one lady in my class was taking an exam later because she had a conflict. It's dubious what the conflict was, but they were given, extra days to take the exam. And the rumor was that she talked to a friend who had already taken the exam and got, the fact pattern already. So I don't know if she cheated or not, but but just avoid that. Don't talk to people, if you are taking an exam later than someone else because you have a conflict or an illness or something like that, just, you don't want to be accused of cheating. So don't even talk about it. Don't even tell people your business. If you're taking the exam later, nobody needs to know about that. That's your business, and that's it. So moving on from that. So how did you cope with the stress of law school? I'm gonna go to Vivian and then to Brittany.
I hate to sound cheesy, but I'm about to sound like a Hallmark card or something. It really was getting more spiritually aware because I was just like constantly, as Sydney mentioned, I was in comparing myself. I was so used to the grades. I was so used to, being the top of the class. I was so used to that behavior that when I got there, and also I didn't have the opportunity. Sydney, I really wish they would have just gave us high and low pass. That would have been really great for my life, but they didn't. So we were very competitive, and I can remember like stories when bar prep was happening of this one girl who she like smashed her whole body into the little desk area in the library, like curled up crying. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to lose my mind. This is crazy. And so I had to start really paying attention to what I started reading books on like anxiety and calming yourself down. And the first book I read about it was Russell Simmons, The Power of Silence or something of that nature. Stillness, The Power of Stillness. And it taught me about meditation. And so I actually started doing meditation daily. I do at least 10 minutes a day to this day. And a daily sort of prayer and gratitude session where I kind of just put myself in a better perspective to go through my day, try to put myself in a positive mindset every morning so that when I wake up, it doesn't matter how many people yell at me or hate me for my job. I just go through like, okay, I hear you. I understand you, and I can move through it. So it was definitely getting more on a spiritual plane with God, getting some meditation in, and learning to just be more grateful and positive in the beginning of my day, so that the rest of my day would sort of take on that tone.
Agreed, and I'll actually just piggyback off of what Vivian said. Just a lot more prayer and just getting my mindset right. And I found that just actually giving myself a break helped, just because you have pressure from all aspects of your life. Like, you don't need to put additional pressure on yourself. And once I learned to let go, it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to get a B, I'll get a B. Or if I'm going to book this class, I'm going to book this class. Like no amount of stress will help me pass or fail. Maybe it might help me fail, but it won't help me pass in the long run. So it's not worth it for me to sit here and stress about, stay up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. It doesn't work that way. And just making sure I kept a very good workout regimen also kind of helped, like put me in a very good mental space. Just, okay, Tuesday I work out from this time to this time, Thursday this time, I'm good. Like, that was my release time. So everything that happened throughout the rest of the week, the Socratic method, all that, like, damn, I got called on again twice this week, like in this class. I can't take it. I knew tomorrow I get to go work out. So, that was my release.
Very good. So what was your relationship with your friends and loved ones while in law school? Did you set boundaries with them so that you could complete your studies? Were there any time responsibility restraints because of law school that you weren't able to do the same things? How did you reaffirm the relationships, or did you totally disconnect from your personal relationships? I'm going to go to Tisha and then to Vivian.
Yeah, as a parent in law school, there's only so much complete disconnect that you can do, right? And so there was lots of conversations, I think, about just trying to understand, even with my children who were younger when I started, like, okay, mommy's in class or mommy has to study, and then even with friends and family, just really trying to get them to understand what this thing takes, right? And so when you work a full-time job, and you're in class 3 nights a week, right? That only leaves a little bit of time left to get all of your reading done, to get all of your cases briefed, to do all of your prep work and really understand what you're doing so that you're prepared for the next week. And if you don't do it that week or weekend, you're screwed, right? So you have to be diligent about, I need to take this time to do X, Y, Z. And with my children, what I found is that, like, I get up early. So I get up early on Saturdays and Sundays, and really kind of the first half of the day till maybe 3 was dedicated to get grinding, right? Reading, outlining, studying, reviewing, and then Saturday nights was family time. Like, this was our time to kick back, put your feet up. We're gonna watch movies, we're gonna play games. And the same thing for Sunday. Sunday night was kind of like, all right, let's start kind of prep for the next week. Before COVID, when I was driving to work, that was time to check in with friends and family. So I talked to my girlfriends on the way to work and on the way to class. That was kind of our time to be able to catch up. And really just, letting them know, like, this is real. This is grind. It takes work. I'm trying to touch base so that, I love you and I care. But there were things, even with my children, that I had to give up. My kids were in band. There was a couple of band shows that I missed because of an exam. And so, things like that where you have to say, all right, well, I don't have a choice. If it's a class, maybe I can say, all right, I'm gonna miss this class tonight to go. But an exam, you have to kind of give that up. And I had to learn to be okay with that and just talk to them and explain to them. And, I use my study habits as lessons. Like, I have one child in high school, one just started middle school. And so I'm like, listen, I would much rather have my feet up and watch TV, but no, I'm up grinding. So let's go, So I use these as just tips for them. Like, listen, do your work first and then we can chill later, So, but just really talking with family and friends and letting people understand that this thing takes work, time, and energy, and trying to just balance it all.
Right. So Vivian.
I'm sorry, did you say me?
Yeah.
For the most part, most of my family and friends didn't really know I was in law school. I kind of kept it to myself, largely because I was afraid that if I failed, I'd have to tell everybody. And being honest. And so I decided to kind of just get through it. And I kind of cut them off, but kind of still tried to stay interactive as much as I could. I went to events. If I couldn't go, I just couldn't go. I didn't give like I'm going through school explanation for it. I kind of just was like, hey, I can't show up tonight or whatever. I think what I really did when I really kind of set boundaries was during bar prep. Those months during bar prep when I was preparing to take the test, that's when I cut everything off. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in one place. I studied. I tried to study at the school, but it was, once again, I ran into too much anxiety and crazy. So I said, I can't do it there. And I ended up literally, I think I called people maybe once or twice throughout 2.5 months of practice. I stayed to myself. I went to no events. I completely cut myself off of social media and just basically focused from about literally 9 to 9 almost every day, studying and waking up, doing it again, waking up, doing it again, and keeping myself focused that way until I passed. That was beneficial for me during that time to kind of hone in so that I could pass the bar. But otherwise, I kind of just tried to balance it out where I would go to a few things here and there while in school. And then if I couldn't make it, I'd just say, hey, I can't make it today. And I tried to do one thing that, as Brittany mentioned, give myself some room to not be so hard on myself for saying, hey, I can't make it, or I can't do this right now, or I don't have the time, ability, or even sometimes just the emotional space to do that right then. It wasn't even that I had a test. I just was exhausted and I just needed to be away. And I had to give myself that grace, because in the beginning I felt very bad, which didn't help because then I was beating myself down. So I had to learn that distancing myself, there was nothing wrong with that. But now, I talk to him every day. So, so it's great.
Great. So 3-part question for you here, Vivian. What's an outline? What was your study technique? And what is a study group, and were you in a study group in law school?
I'm gonna start with the study group thing because it kind of explains the rest of it. I tried the group study group in the beginning because I thought, ooh, cool, group, I can learn. We played. We did not study. It was not good. And I learned nothing. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. So I think I met with them maybe once or twice throughout the rest of the time I was there, just to kind of check in. But I ended up having to study by myself. And I had to pull somewhat from, crazy enough, from my high school studying methods again, and kind of relearn how I learn. And so IRAC was a good way for me. IRAC, for those who don't know, it's like the legal outline. You have to do the issue, the rule, the analysis, and then the conclusion. I actually remembered that. And it basically makes you break down the cases. And I think that was beneficial for me. And I went back to old school flashcards. Everything had a flashcard, and I would sit myself down and time myself to see if I could remember. And I also did the thing of writing out stuff and having it on my walls, so I would see it constantly. It was constantly running through my brain. I'd see this wall was the torts wall, and this wall was the property law wall, and this wall was the contracts wall. And so that's really how I got through my study methods. I basically immersed myself within the subject in hopes that I wouldn't forget too much. But going back to the basics is really what helped me. Those flashcards, going back to the highlighting in my book with colors, was a lot more beneficial than a lot of the tips that I had gotten while I was in law school.
So time management tips. I'm going to go to Brittany and Sydney on this. What were your time management tips that you could give law students now?
I would definitely say learn how to budget your time. Write it all down. I think I lived from a calendar. I think I still do. Just because that helped me see, from the hours of 9 to 5. Of course, I'm in school or I'm at work, but from 5 to 6, I have a break. What can I do from 5 to 6 that is not schoolwork related? Okay, let me either make dinner or let me spend, half an hour with my daughter, whatever the case is. I know I have that time budgeted out so that I'm not playing catch up later on. And that's a time for you to just maybe take half an hour for yourself if you need it. Take an hour for yourself. I don't know, go run, go take a walk, whatever the case is. It's just you have your time budgeted out so you know what you have coming and you're not so surprised. And even with the schedule, it's flexible. You can situate things the way you need them to work in your life. So I found that to be extremely helpful for me. And even when studying for the bar, that was probably my go-to method. Okay, what am I doing on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? So I knew when I could put in time to go to a movie or whatever the case may be. It gave me something to look forward to.
I think I would say getting more efficient with my time was the best way that I found to budget my time. And I think, so many things are a function of time versus money. And I definitely made those trade-offs. So I know that, like, for example, some of those doctor's appointments, I could take the T. It might take me an hour. The T is the Boston subway, right? It might take me an hour and a half to take the T and the bus or walk or whatever. And like that would be a lot more cost effective, but that round trip's going to be 3 hours of time. Or I could take an Uber, which is more expensive, but in that Uber, I can connect to the hotspot on my phone and do my homework. And now it's maybe a 20-minute drive. It's only 40 minutes of travel, but it's also 40 minutes of homework in an Uber. So now I've taken that time and used it productively. Same thing, I was like notorious for doing my homework at the hair salon, like just notorious for it. And then in terms of jobs, like I babysat a lot. I am a big fan, even in college, of low hours, high pay jobs. I would rather not work, 12 hours at a front desk for a certain number. I'd rather get paid $20 an hour to do something for a shorter amount of hours. And so whether that was tutoring or teaching piano, but the nannying was great because I picked these kids up from school, and then they would come home and they would do their homework and I would do my homework. And so now I'm getting paid to do my homework, and I love getting paid to do my homework. It's the best thing. So I would definitely say, find those tricks. And then in terms of food also, so for me, it was the first time that I had an apartment that I was responsible for cooking for myself. And I think even as an adult, I can say, like, we spend a lot of time going like, what do I want to eat? What, like, can I go to the store? And I lived kind of in a grocery like stored food desert. Like there weren't any grocery stores that I could walk to. Like there were a couple of really expensive bodegas, but like, and then Trader Joe's, it was pretty far, and then you can only kind of bring back what you can carry. So I used Instacart for my groceries. Because I learned that they could go to the much cheaper supermarket that was too far for me to get to. And then I wasn't also spending time grocery shopping. And then I did Blue Apron and Home Chef because I just like portioned out the meals where actually it came to be like maybe $9 a meal. And those would be my dinners for the week. So I'd get 6 meals a week. I didn't have to think about what to eat. I didn't have to go to the grocery store for dinners. I didn't like it. They took 30 minutes or less to make. And it was just a really really good way of like being more efficient with my time. Yes, it was. I think some people was like, oh, that's really expensive. It was about, I don't know, $240 a month. So about $60 a week. Yes, but time is also really expensive. And I don't think we fully appreciate that. You can do so much more. You can make more money when you have more time.
Absolutely. Sydney, I'm going back to you. Did you participate in your law school's practicum or clinical program, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I loved clinics. There was one clinic that I really wanted to do that I never did. It was a child advocacy clinic. That was basically one of the reasons why I went to Harvard. It actually worked out that I didn't do it. The woman who ran it was actually racist. And so we just couldn't really like do that route, but it forced me to think a little bit outside the box. So I had a mentor who was like, you really should do some policy work. And I didn't really want to, but I was like, okay. So I randomly added the food law clinic. And the food law clinic was amazing. I did it both years, my 2L year. We got to go to Iowa. Never been to Iowa before. I got to see a farm. Drake Law School is the partner food law clinic, but I actually became like quasi-expert in food waste, and specifically school food waste. And I learned that actually all those dates on your food, those are just a lie. They're actually not. Your food's fine. And so like really practical things. I always talk to people about food law now, and it was the most random thing. But doing that kind of policy work was cool. And then I clinicked for the Massachusetts Attorney General's Child and Youth Protection Unit because I still kind of wanted policy work with children. And so I kind of fashioned it myself, and that was pretty cool. We got to work on some DACA legislation, the Dreamers Act, and I got to look at some of their child welfare issues. But I would say the best clinical experience, I think, well, food law was best in a different way. But my 3rd year, I was in the domestic violence and family litigation clinic. And so that was, I think, more true, typical what people think about clinics, and that I had clients And we got to represent them in court. I got to do my own like kind of motions hearings for divorce practices, which was cool. I got to represent a client who, she was a little crazy. But it was a very messy case. And you know, it's interesting when you're a clinical student, because like the other side, sometimes they have like actual attorneys, and they might have money. Just because one side qualifies for free legal help does not mean that the other side is also low income. And so getting to understand those power dynamics and just like what I liked about doing legal services and what I didn't like, and what it's like to fight without as many resources as you would want in the face of someone who has almost endless resources, and how to do client management. I took it was in Jamaica, Jamaica Plain, it was like an hour away on the T. Sometimes I did Uber, but most of the time I did try to take the T. And so it was a little far out, but then we were in kind of like, we had our own little, basically like law firm. And so there was housing on one level, and we were on the family level, and there's Veterans Affairs. And it was just a really cool experience of being immersed in this community and kind of helping people. And I will say, because I moved to the suburbs in Maryland, it is the reason why I was able to get jobs, because, you know, I think big firms and like cities are used to hiring people straight out of law school, but not in the suburbs. And so when I was looking at family law firms, you know, you're competing against like people who are just changing jobs, who have been doing family law for so long, and being able to say, actually, yeah, I have represented these number of clients, and I have done my own hearings, and I know the law. Really helped in my interviews. Even with me coming from Harvard, I think without that clinical experience, it would have been a little bit difficult, just because they don't have the time to train.
Right. So Vivian, could you tell us about any unique experience that you had related to law school, to your demographic, whatever that means to you?
Yes. So my demographic is, of course, African American and female. And we all know that we only make up 5% of the legal population, and women only make up approximately, Black women only make up 2% of the approximate legal population. And I can remember one day we were in class, and we were kind of talking about those experiences and how we are all from different backgrounds, both educationally and, you know, ethnically and culturally. And one of our classmates was like, "Oh, you guys are the double negative." And I was like, "Whoa." And he said, "You're both Black and you're a female." And I was like, you know, I never thought of it like that. And his objective was essentially that we're unfortunately, you know, the least to get hired, first of all, because women get paid less on average. And then by being Black, you get paid less on average, or you're least picked on average. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, in a way, that's actually a great positive, though, because you need the diversification. And I happen to have both of the things you need the most. And that was my response to him. And he was, because we were talking about, you know, getting into the bigger firms and being able to do the bigger things. And I was like, well, you're going to need a Black girl because you need the Black quota, and you're going to need a woman because you're going to need the gender quota. So I think I'm going to do just fine. I remember saying that and thinking of it like that. And I still think that to this day, and often tell many of my mentees, do not think that just because we are small in numbers that you can't get whatever job you want to attain. And also do not forget, and I am a big stressor of this, to be yourself. Don't come in there and attempt to change your perspective, how you respond, what you say, and what you do based specifically off of what they think you should say, do, or be. Be yourself, be professional. Now, I'm not saying, you know, go too far with it, but put yourself in a perspective where you don't allow them to make your positives, because that's what they are, into negatives. And remember to, you know, accept all of who you are in this profession, because they need you. They need Black women in this profession. And oftentimes, I think because we're so small in number, that gets overlooked. But without our perspectives that we bring to the table, they wouldn't have some of the thoughts. Like even in my current job, I have had to fight with my state attorney based off of just cultural perspectives. I'm like, no, he's not seeing that the way you are. I recognize that he's the defendant here, but his mind's thinking this and yours is thinking that, and just helping to put into that perspective because of my unique and cultural, experience that, I hate to say it, but he's a white male. He's not going to see that or understand that or learn that or receive that the way that we can or express on some of our clients.
Right. So Tisha, I'm going to go to you first on this question. So the name of the YouTube channel is Networking for Law Students and Lawyers. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about how networking has played both a role in law school and now in your career. So I'm going to go to Tisha, then Sydney, then Brittany, then Vivian.
So networking for me was essential. Like I think Sydney mentioned it, she didn't come from a family of lawyers. I will be the first lawyer in my family. No one in my family has ever gone to law school. So this experience was completely new. I didn't know any lawyers, not one, going into law school. So it was essential for me to connect with folks in law school as well as professors. And that actually broadened my horizons to connect with other attorneys. And so reaching out and talking with them to get the experience of not only just their law school experience, but their career experiences was huge for me because this experience has been so foreign, right? So it's something brand new. And is essential. And I felt like from before I started law school, I actually started reaching out and trying to connect with folks who I found out had JDs, had went to law school, were practicing lawyers, even in my career. So I worked at a university, so we had legal counsel. So I touched base with them and started connecting with them, learning from them. And they actually were able to connect me with other attorneys, right? And so it was essential for me from the beginning to say, hey, I need to connect with some people who are doing this. Because I just didn't know anyone already who was doing it. So networking is huge, not just in law school, but even for people who have already graduated.
Absolutely. So let's go to Brittany.
I would say, and I would piggyback off what Tisha said, it's absolutely essential. I know whenever I was a governor for the Florida Bar Young Lawyers Division, the Law Student Division, we actually had networking events and we would put them on for the school. But as a governor yourself, you were invited to a lot of the conferences. So it helped me hone in on my networking skills because I was able to talk to other attorneys, to some judges, and they were actually really nice. They sat with us, whether in groups or just the governors as a whole, and gave us some tips that we probably wouldn't get otherwise, just as regular students in school. So I really I guess recommend trying to get into groups where you can network with other attorneys, network with just outside in your local community, your local judges, and that will help it just expand your horizon on what you want to do in law school, your job opportunities, whether you need them outside of school or if you need it for extern and internships, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Absolutely. Sydney?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of networking. I like to say, like, I used to collect marbles as a kid, and like, not that I collect people in a bad way, but like, you kind of do, like, you gotta like, you gotta hold on to people. I think sometimes we like meet people and then we just kind of like forget about them. And I like to hold on to people and like touch base. I will say that the summer before my senior year of college, I interned at WilmerHale in Boston. And I knew that I didn't want to go to a big law firm, but I wanted to try it out. It was a paralegal internship. And it wasn't like really what I wanted to do, but I was like, okay, while I'm here, there's like 100, 200, 300 lawyers here. They all went to law school somewhere. So I was like, this is my list of schools I'm applying to. I need to find an alumni from every one of these schools and talk to them about their experience. And so I did. And it's funny because I met a wonderful attorney, Alyssa Narson, who was from Maryland. I think she went to GW Law, and she's from Maryland. And she was like, oh, I have to connect you with my friend, Samantha Kravitz in Maryland. So I did, and we had a phone call, and it was cool. And then, I made some mentors. I made some lifelong mentors. Like some of the people from that firm I still talk to now to kind of help and guide me. But it's funny because after I graduated law school and after I clerked, or during my clerkship, I saw that the woman, Samantha, who I'd been connected with, had recently got a new job. And I was like, oh, I remember her. So I just sent her an email and I was just like, you know, congratulations on your job. Also, I'd love to talk to you about your firm someday. And she actually like responded and was like, we'd actually love to interview you this week. And so that's how I got my law firm job, from this connection, from the connection from my like senior year of college, right? And so like you never know. I didn't know that like 4 or 5 years later that was gonna like really be the person to give me that job. You don't know what kind of doors people are gonna open for you later. But she was like, you know, people just don't do that. She was like, people don't reach out, you know, and stay in contact like that. And so I'm always like, make a little list of people, and you're not making this list to use them or anything, but like they're one, it's just cool to know people. I love people. I think they're fascinating. But like I just try to keep a little list, and every so often I'll be like, let me just say hey and update you on my life and check in. And you might be in a position to bless them. They might be in a position to bless you. You just don't know. But if you lose that bridge, then you never know.
I'm sort of the exact opposite of Sydney. I'm not as much of a people person. So it is actually very hard to maintain my contacts. And I must say, though, that I agree with all of the women here. Networking is so important. And I wish that I would have done more. Because I didn't. I was involved in the groups, but I mainly was like thinking, just get through it, just get through it, just get out. So I didn't really focus on networking or expanding my circle or even reaching out to people. It took me about a year, maybe after law school, to even connect with another attorney down here. And crazy enough, was literally right in the same building with the woman that I had, with Rhonda, that I had worked for before. And I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? So I am now a big advocate for please network, because now I'm doing it 4 years outside of my schooling, already in a job. And I'm, you know, we're when you're trying to change up or move or learn, do things about yourself, you need those people, and I don't have that, and I'm having to now build my network, having to now build my base. And it's a little late. It's not impossible to do. So hi ladies, I might be contacting you soon. But I agree, networking is very important to kind of getting you to that next step. You never know how it's going to turn out in your favor. And this wonderful, you know, reason why I'm on the panel is from finally deciding, let's open my sphere and network. So I've truly, you know, enjoyed this moment, and this is once again a part of networking.
Absolutely. So Vivian, speaking to that, when should law students and pre-law students start networking?
Immediately. And literally, like, I know that sounds crazy because you're trying to get yourself through the new pace of this new environment where you don't understand what's happening. You're not familiar with how it works. So you have a lot coming at you. But I think the sooner you do it, the more comfortable you become with people. If you're not a people person, the more comfortable you become with the spaces and learning how to work and network those spaces. And then the longer relationship you'll have built with those attorneys, JD holders, or just legal perspectives over time. I think one of the biggest things that I have learned through my late networking experience is that a lot of attorneys hate that you just kind of reach out for them with wanting something instead of having built that relationship with them. And I think if you start early, your want is less. So because you're in school, so you can't want, to get a legal job immediately. You're just starting. And so you can take that time to cultivate your relationship with them instead of having to ask something from them. And over time, by the time you get through it, you can end up being in a position where you can say, as Sydney, I check back in on a consistent basis. And because of that, now I've gotten or I've obtained a job because I've built this relationship, and these attorneys, JD holders, know my work ethic, know who I am, know my personality, know my characteristics.
Absolutely. So Brittany, when should law students begin the process of looking for a job?
Ooh, looking for a job. I would probably say your second year. I think after that you kind of have a good idea of what you want to practice and the types of areas that you want to get internships or externships with. So for me, it was a little bit different because I was already in my job, but I know that a lot of other evening students, they did not have jobs. They didn't even have jobs after we graduated. And it's like this whole time, I kind of felt like the mama bear, like, go look for a job, go look for a job. Like, what are you doing? But I mean, that's just what it is because the legal field is so competitive. You can't wait until you get out. You can't wait until you pass the bar to have your job. You need to be looking before. You need to be, thinking about, do I maybe want to go in-house? Do I like trial work? Do I like family? Do I want to do trademarks? So just getting that thought in your head, even if you hate the job that you get first out, like you can always switch jobs, but not having a job and having the stress of looking for a job whenever you take the bar, after you take the bar, is even more difficult than you taking the time out, again, building in your schedule. This is what I'm going to do. This is the type of job I want to look for. Do it in your second year so it's not as hard. And you can, again, like Sydney said, reach out to those contacts that you've had previously, even if, they passed you up on jobs. Hey, I'm still looking. So you give yourself time and you never know. You might end up with one of those jobs as soon as you do graduate. So I think, yeah, just look for a job immediately, but especially in your second year.
Right. I totally agree with that. So we're almost at time, and I'd like the whole panel to respond to this question. How can our viewers reach out to you? Do you have any upcoming projects or business that you would like our viewers to know about? So I'm going to start with Sydney, then Brittany, then Tisha, then Vivian. Sydney, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you. So I just shared my screen here with you. So definitely feel free to reach out. I'll put my info in the chat. Like I said, I'm a college consultant and a law school admissions consulting. I've been doing admissions consulting since 2012 with Montgomery Admissions Consulting. I am a member of the Independent Educational Consultants Association. I'm on the graduate school committee and the ethics committee. Ethics and consulting is super important, and a member of the Potomac and Chesapeake Association for College Admission and Counseling. So I work with 9th through 10th grade students on finding their interests, their passions, their skills, aligning that with their academics, their summer programming and internships and time management. 11th through 12th grade students on building their college list, on finding what's going to make a good fit for them financially with their family, but also emotionally, socially, and academically. And then, of course, for law school admissions, I walk students through the entire process. Over 60 or 70% of my clients are Black and Latino women, many of whom are first gen. As the first person in my family to go to law school, I definitely understand that, and affordability and accessibility is really important to me. So I like to say that I offer something for every budget. I have one-on-one consulting and also small group consulting. But then I also have a free Facebook because I have a YouTube channel and a blog. I'm always trying to get as much free information as possible out to everyone, and I do monthly prayer calls as well if that's something that interests people, because as we've all talked about, spirituality and prayer are so important in this journey. So I do offer monthly prayer calls and just a place for people to be inspired and empowered.
Awesome. Brittany?
I love it. So I guess after you go talk to Sydney, you can head over my way. I'm one of the co-founders of Pipeline to Purpose, and it's an organization that is dedicated to helping low-income and minority students get the resources that they need to make it through law school, and even those ones that are in high school taking your LSAT. Because I know a lot of students struggle with, especially minority students struggle with getting LSAT prep, getting LSAT tutors. Even in law school, I found that a lot of, our people don't necessarily have access to getting bar prep, getting effective bar prep. So our organization is dedicated to helping students do that. And I also am launching my own firm. It's called Anderson O'Neill LLC. So you'll probably see that out there on Facebook, on IG, and LinkedIn. But you can reach me at brittanykanderson@outlook.com.
Okay, so I put my contact information in the chat. You can reach me at missjohnson25@gmail.com. I'm on all social media platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. I'm still a student, so I'm still in the throes of it. So if you have any questions or you need any advice or you just want somebody to kind of cry with, feel free to reach out, and I'm here for you.
I was attempting to put my stuff in there, but I'll try to get it later. So I am a public defender right now in Volusia County. I love the government work. I know it's different for most people. So if you are a person that wants to be an advocate or strongly wanting to advocate for those who have less, then be the perfect person to reach out to. My email address is Willa, it's my last name without the M and the S, WILLIA, Vivian, VIVIAN, @gmail.com. I am a membership chair of a new organization called Becoming Black Female Barristers, started by a friend of mine named Ashley Wright. She's also an Esquire. She would not mind you reaching out to her either. And my Facebook page is always open. Vivian Williams. It's very easy, straightforward, to the point. You can make contact with me at any time. And I'd love to contact you as well.
Awesome. So I want to thank all the panelists for sharing their knowledge with us. I so appreciate it, all of you ladies and William as well. So thank you again. Thank you to all the people that are viewing this. And we'll do another panel discussion shortly. Okay. So thank you so much. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel. It's free. Networking for Law Students LLC. Visit our website, networkingforlawstudents.com. We're on Instagram. It's Networking for Law Students 1, and Facebook is Networking for Law Students. Be sure to check out our courses on thinkific.com. We have a new and totally free study skills course that can be used for both law school exams and the bar exam.